Welcome to UW Video. Thank you all for spending your lunch hour with us. I'm John Haslam, Associate Vice President and General Manager with UW Video, and it's great to see so many new faces coming into our studios. Part of our change in brand and orientation is about doing more outreach to campus and helping you all tell your stories with the power of video. And it's really no wonder that we have so many faces here spending a Friday lunch hour with us. When we conducted a campus survey this summer, we were pleasantly surprised to find that 91% of the respondents on this campus said that they plan to produce video content this year. And the reason for that, as you all, I'm sure, are aware, is the power of video in your communications activities. Whether it is getting people to open an e-newsletter, whether it's to stay on your website, or whether it's to convert them into some sort of action on behalf of your unit, school, or college, video time and again proves to be vastly more effective than written communications. And that's because it's engaging, it's emotive, there's sight, sounds, and emotion, and more, it's portable. Right? More and more content's getting consumed on devices like this, and it's a much better experience than reading perhaps a web page on a device with this size of screen. I know people have bigger screens than this, but point is that consuming video content on a wide range of devices is proving to be more and more effective over time as people get used to being delivered communications in that medium. So today we have a great set of panelists to give you some tips and tricks on creating better video. We have some great refreshments in the back, coffee and pastries and water. Please get up, help yourselves, ask questions. This is not a real formal thing. So please get up, ask questions. Do what you need to do. There'll be a little interactive part of the presentation today. And of course, because we're UW Video, we'll be filming all this. So if you want to go back and check it out later, check out yourself on camera, check out a demonstration, check out what one of our panelists said, it will be captured on camera. We'll have it up on the website for you. As you exit today, there's a survey. This is the first of a series of these that we'd like to do. We invite you to take our survey. It's 2 questions, so it won't take very long at all. Get you back to your office or whatever else you need to do in your day. But 2 questions about our next video lunchbox. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Ron Klamert. Better put on my glasses for this because these are big words. Ron is our Director of Production and Content Development at UW Video, but he has a very illustrious past. He has spent time as Director of Broadcast and Operations at our own ABC affiliate in town, Como Television, WPVI in Philadelphia. He's been the Executive Director of Marketing and Promotion at the Disney Company, Vice President of Production at Tokyo Pop, a multimedia organization in Los Angeles, Vice President of Broadcasting at Total Living Network, and Vice President of Production and Programming at the Beverage Channel. So, Ron, take it away.
Thank you, John. So, welcome. This is a very informal lunchbox talk, so please ask questions anytime. Get up and move around anytime you wish. Again, this is very informal. We're here to answer questions and hopefully give you some new ideas and show you that at UW Video what we're capable of doing. Basically, UW Video is here to help the University of Washington tell your story in cost-effective programming and production from 30 seconds to an hour and a half and even beyond. So it's my pleasure to introduce our panel who will actually do all the work. To my left is Carolyn Douglas. You may recognize her from King TV, where she was an anchor for 12 years. She is an Emmy Award-winning producer as well. She's been in the market for several years.
Long enough.
Long enough. She is now president of her own company. and she is here, and also she is host of UW360. A program that we do is a news feature program that's on Como TV that airs starting in April and airs each month on Channel 27. To Carolyn's left is Rick Woolery, longtime employee of Cairo TV and award-winning editor. We call them predators, which is producer, editor. It's a real privilege to have Rick here and all his years of experience, because what he does for us, rather than just press buttons and make edits, he uses his talent as a producer in everything that he does. It's a real privilege as a working producer to give him a project and he just goes nuts and does his thing. He edits all of our 360s, he edits a lot of our most prestigious programming. In the audience is also Bob. Say hello, Bob.
Hello, Bob.
Bob is our other editor, and again, a longtime veteran in this market. To Rick's left is the other Rick. Rick Garza is our executive producer in production. He does a lot of work with ICA and sports, is also executive producer of Four Peaks, our program that is syndicated on King, airs Sunday nights at 9 o'clock. Did I get that right?
You did.
Rick is a 9-time Emmy award-winning producer from Cairo TV. He was nominated 20 times.
Wow. Give or take.
Which is not exactly a great batting average if you were in baseball, but in the Emmy television world, that's pretty impressive. I was nominated 4 times, and I'm 0 for 4. So he's doing a lot better than I am. Rick has also won a Telly Award here at UWTV, and Rick has been here about 1.5 years. It's a privilege to have him here. Also in our audience is Becky. Say hello, Becky.
Hello.
Becky is one of our producers. She's also here to answer any questions and eat lunch. And Cara, who's our other producer, who you probably know if you've done any work with us. So that's our panel. Again, it's open to, this is conversational, very informal. Please ask any questions as we move along. So I will turn it now over to Carolyn.
Thank you, Ron. So Ron and John have asked me to speak about what makes a good digital story. And as Ron so graciously alluded to, I've spent many years studying what makes a good story on air and online, reporting in markets all around the country. And one thing I've seen over and over again, as John was talking about, is video really is probably one of the most powerful tools we have to connect with people, as YouTube and Facebook and Twitter prove every day. We've all seen one good, memorable soundbite or image, how it can last a lifetime. We want to talk about it. We want to share it. It makes us connect, really like no other tool that we have. So it is an incredibly powerful tool, and when I'm looking for great stories to tell, the first question I do ask myself is, will people connect with this story? And I think that's a critical first question to ask, because if people don't connect with your story, they're not going to want to watch it, and they're sure not going to remember it. So the challenge is, what will make them connect to this story? What's really going to grab them and draw them in and make them remember this story? And for me, it's boiled down to 3 key questions over the years. What's interesting or unique about this story idea? Who does it affect? And why should I care? I ask myself those questions over and over again. And keeping those questions in mind, I always have my reporter hat on. I'm looking around the workplace, talking to people around me, trying to figure out what are people talking about today. I go online and look at the comments online on your social media sites. What's really resonating with people? What employees are the most interesting, or which coworkers are people really talking about in your workplace? So driving home, thinking what was most interesting about my workday today. When someone asks what happened at work, what's the first thing that comes off the top of my head? And I keep a list, and I write it down, and I keep referring back to that list, just to keep always a fresh list in my mind of story ideas that can be working for 360, because we're always looking for stories that are really going to resonate with our viewers. And you may think that some of the best video stories are the ones that are simply the most visual ones, but that's often not the case. It's very important to have a good visual story, but really what makes the story compelling are the people at the heart of it. If you have very interesting people telling the story, then guaranteed that's going to resonate with viewers. And we have a good example here from the UW Law School. John, I think, has this one about the innocent spouse. And this one shows, it's a great example of how a program at the UW Law School was personalized by our producers, and I think made a powerful connection with the impact it's having on our world.
Roll.
Yes, please.
You know, we had this whirlwind romance in the beginning, right? We had a Cinderella Prince Charming wedding.
I pronounce you husband and wife.
Stacy's marriage had a storybook beginning, but the promise to love and to cherish didn't last long.
A lot of just putting me down, making me feel like I was worthless, which I did. It gradually got worse and worse over the years. He had me under complete control, and I would do whatever he said because I didn't want to get hurt. I didn't want my kids to get hurt.
After fleeing to a shelter and finally getting a divorce, this chapter of Stacy's life was supposed to be over. But years later, there was one thing she never could have seen coming. While married, Stacy's ex-husband failed to pay their federal taxes, and the IRS was coming to collect, which included pursuing both spouses.
It was like $25,000, which to me is a huge amount of money.
Tax Clinic, this is Eric speaking.
She called the Federal Tax Clinic at the University of Washington School of Law.
Students are able to actually practice law while still in law school. So it's sort of like residency for doctors or your internship, where these are real clients, they're real issues.
The clinic represents 500 to 600 clients a year in all types of tax cases.
In the first 6 months of this year, we saved taxpayers over $1.2 million.
Adria Vondra is a practicing tax lawyer who started at the UW School of Law Clinic. As a student, she took the original call from Stacy.
She told me her whole story just in the first call. She was very open and honest and really forthcoming in everything that had happened to her.
Like Stacy, 90% of clients seeking innocent spouse relief are women, often single mothers with fairly low incomes.
She associated the IRS with her ex-husband and all that she'd been through.
Working hand in hand with the Federal Tax Clinic, it was Stacy versus the IRS, a battle that would drag on for years.
For the most part, the IRS really tries to get the answer right, and they try to only hold those that are truly responsible.
Because of cases like Stacy's, the IRS decided to drop its 2-year statute of limitations in some innocent spouse cases.
And the IRS, by its own doing, has relaxed the rules and made it much easier for people, women, to get innocent spouse relief.
After years of court hearings and appeals, the IRS made a final ruling on Stacy's case.
So I texted her and I said, "This is Adria, call me right away." And so she called me about 2 minutes later, and I told her, and I also told her she was getting a refund of over $20,000, and she pretty much screamed in the air and was very, very excited.
I couldn't believe it that somebody like me actually won this huge, it was a huge ordeal for years and years.
Nearly every day at the UW School of Law Federal Tax Clinic, another Stacy is on the line.
When you can help someone who has a problem that's just insurmountable to them, where you have grown men afterwards cry, and I get emails saying, "You've allowed me to move forward with my life." I mean, that's why you do this.
What's for dinner?
It was supposed to be a storybook beginning. That was far from true. But at least for Stacy today, she's finally ready to begin the next chapter of her life.
Because it was such a long fight that I never thought would have this resolution, and it's just amazing. So, all those people who think that it can't be done, it can be done, and there is a happy ending sometimes, and not to give up.
So great story, huh? Pretty terrifying what happened to her, and amazing to see how a UW program stepped in and really transformed her life. And I think the producers did a perfect job of personalizing that, finding the person at the heart of that story that really made it resonate with viewers. Another story that we did that I was thinking about was about Glassy Baby. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about this company, the great little hand-blown glass candle holders. Great visuals, beautiful studio in Madrona if you go see it, where they're making up the story behind this. You're always worried I'm going to drop it when I do this.
I just wanted to look at it.
The story behind these Glassy Babies.
She doesn't want you to hold
Drop
it.
this Glassy
She won't
Baby.
let it go.
It's the only one I have.
Oh, okay. She knows me
Given
really
to me
well.
by a very dear friend, is the woman who makes these. And it's a pretty well-known story. I think some of you might have heard it. Lee Rhodes, who is a UW grad and was also a patient at UW Medical Center. She was diagnosed with lung cancer. There were fears it was terminal. And she started creating these with her husband during that whole process as mental health therapy. Well, she obviously survived, thanks in large part to UW Medical Center, and started a business, a thriving business, selling these Glassy Babies, where the proceeds go to helping fund all different types of research for different types of cancers. And they also fund the White Light charity at UW Medical Center to help other patients pay their bills. So an incredible story, you know, behind this one business in Seattle that really shows the impact one UW grad and patient at UW Medical Center has had in our community. And it wasn't just the visuals that really made that story, it was the woman behind it and her life story behind it. Another example of that we did this year is peace tags, and John's got that one queued up too, where we found a great angle behind the story of the healing gardens that UW helped create at Fisher House in Seattle. Welcome back to UW360. Our next story began with one woman's mission to generate a message of peace while also supporting our military veterans. Thanks to this UW alum's creativity and determination, these peace tags are now all around the world, spreading a message of peace, one tag at a time.
So this is a peace tag with a quote by Mother Teresa, and it says, "If we have no peace, it's because we've forgotten that we belong to one another."
For Freda Goldfarb, peace is a personal mission. A mission that was born from her desire to honor our military veterans, and especially her father, who fought in World War II.
He talked a lot when I was growing up about how meaningful that experience was to him, and he felt very strongly about caring about veterans and sort of instilled that in me.
Freda didn't know much about founding a national charity, but as a member of Seattle's well-known Goldfarb Jewelers family, she did know a thing or two about jewelry. So she went to work designing a necklace that would both honor military veterans and celebrate peace.
I also thought it would be nice to have something beautiful and attention-getting for people to ask about, you know, what is that you're wearing?
The result, peace tags. Dog tag style pendants with inscriptions on the back from celebrated peacemakers.
And it's engraved with a quote about peace from a famous peacemaker throughout time.
All the proceeds from peace tags go to veterans organizations, and primarily to Fisher House, a temporary home where the families of wounded soldiers can stay while their loved ones recover in the hospital.
We're such a house of comfort. The families are over at the hospital all day and they come back and they're tired and they come here. It makes Fisher House a home.
Word spread quickly, and soon peace tags were hanging around the necks of people all over the region, and then the world. Even the Dalai Lama was tagged at the Seeds of Compassion event in Seattle several years ago. And the more peace tags sold, the more money poured in to help Seattle's Fisher House with all kinds of projects, including its healing garden, an exquisite outdoor sanctuary where military families can relax and reflect. It was designed and implemented by a team from the UW.
It's a meditation garden, and it's really wonderful.
So far, peace tags have generated tens of thousands of dollars for Fisher House and other charities, and perhaps more importantly, awareness of veterans' needs.
I would say Peace Tags is equally about creating awareness as much as it is about raising funds. It's a very visible piece of jewelry, it's very beautiful, and it's a great conversation piece.
It's a shining example of what one person can do with the right dream, the right team, and even the right school behind her.
I'd like to see everybody have a peace tag on someday. I think she's reaching too low. She needs to have it worldwide. Everybody needs a peace tag.
Maya Angelou said, "Peace is more than and other than the absence of war. Peace is the permanent presence of goodwill." And I think that's some of the most amazing words I've ever heard.
Freda recently returned from Israel, where she passed out peace tags as a way to promote peace in the Middle East. If you'd like to learn more about peace tags, you'll find a link on our website. That story started out as a story about the healing garden at Fisher House, which frankly had been covered a lot in the local media. So I was hoping we could find a new and different angle, and poking around more, learned that the major funding for the healing garden had come from this UW grad, Freda, who'd started her own charity, and most of the proceeds went to Fisher House and helped pay for that healing garden. So just by digging around a bit more and asking more about the people involved in the project, it revealed a whole new angle that we were able to cover for that show, which was a lot of fun. So a final example I want to, question.
So related to that, what's the origin of the innocent spouse segment? Like, did someone from the law school come to you, or how did that get started?
I'm trying to remember who originally pitched that one.
It
came from the law school, pitched it to us, right?
They wanted to talk about their clinics?
Yeah, I mean, that's typically what happens, is that the various schools come to us and they have something they're doing that's really important and really great. But if we created a news magazine program that was just sort of documentary style about this program or that school or that college, from a viewer's perspective, it doesn't feel as compelling, and exactly where Carolyn's going is telling it through the eyes of a person. Because as these guys hear me talk about a lot, television is about faces and names. We want to meet the people who are behind the scenes. So yeah, law school, and that's how most 360 stories come to us, is through a pitch. And then we try to, our producers, Carolyn, Ron, try to take that and turn that into a story.
And it often starts here. I mean, that was almost 2 years ago, I think, that we did that story. Yeah. And since then, that and the Innocence Project, the Times has covered it. Most of the local affiliates have covered it. It's become a very well-known story here in our region. Now that we've talked, though, about how people make such a great story, I want to give one final example of what happens when maybe you don't have a compelling person at the heart of a story, but it's still a really great idea, because you're still going back to those questions of why should I care, why should this matter, and you're answering yes to both of those for various reasons, but you don't necessarily have a great storyteller at the heart of the story. I think you can still make a lot of stories work, because video can really bring a program to life, even if there isn't necessarily a great person at the heart of the story. One example I think of this is the ARB app story that we did last spring in the Seattle Arboretum. And this story came to us from UW Botanical Gardens, who co-manages the Seattle Arb. And we heard about this, I think John heard about it first, this great new app that they're developing that's really transforming the way people experience the Seattle Arboretum, and potentially could transform the way we interact with parks and arboretums all around the world. So here's an example of that.
What if trees could talk? Tell you their name, their history, their medical background.
You'd be able to go in, look at the accession number, type it into your cell phone, and voila, you'd have all that information right there available to you.
Thanks to a new digitized mapping system being created by the University of Washington for the Arboretum, soon these trees will be able to tell their stories. Park visitors and managers will be able to go online and access all kinds of detailed information about a specific tree or collection. University of Washington Botanical Garden Director and botanist Sarah Reichert is one of the project leaders.
It can help a researcher or teacher by being able to locate the plants they're specifically interested in. It can also help the public just as they wander around and enjoy the Arboretum. They can have a deeper understanding of it by actually learning more about the trees that we have here.
The Arboretum is home to thousands of plant collections and species, each with a detailed record and history. Records that until now have been saved on paper.
It's time to modernize. Join the 21st century, already in progress.
Now, all those paper maps and records are being digitized. And at the same time, UW teams are carefully resurveying the entire 230-acre park. The information from those now digitized records will then be linked to the updated survey points. End result? An interactive geographic information systems map for the entire park that will allow researchers, students, and visitors alike to go online and access specific information about every documented tree and plant in this arboretum, even taking virtual tours from home.
So it's going to allow you access to a lot of information. For the public, I think that's going to be a great thing. For a researcher, it's also going to be a great thing if they want to, for instance, extract DNA from the plant, from a plant from China. Rather than going all the way to China, if they know we've got good collection information and documentation about it, they can use that plant here in the Arboretum instead of having to go all the way to China to actually get that material.
The 2-year project is funded by a grant from the Institute for Museum and Library Services. For Sarah, it's a dream come true.
It's a project that I've wanted to have happen for many years. So it's enormously fulfilling to me to see that we're actually doing this project, that we are actually kind of on the leading edge of botanic gardens in this country in doing something like this and allowing all of this accession information to be available to the public and to make it more available to students as well.
She expects to eventually see this technology in public gardens all around the country, saving park managers time and money and allowing visitors to take incredibly detailed, self-guided tours.
Our botanic garden is a museum, and so just as you might want to track a painting in an art museum, we want to be able to track the trees in the same kind of way, with the same kind of detailed information about it.
If all goes as planned, the interactive map will be up and running by summer of 2014, with a smartphone app to follow, giving visitors to the Arboretum something new to talk about, and allowing the trees to finally talk back.
This is amazing that through this technology, we're basically letting the trees tell their story.
They are talking to us.
Question about this. So you're profiling an app that is not yet released. How do you make the decision to pursue this story now rather than after the app is available?
If it's something that we hope, well, me personally, I'd like to see it coming to market within the year, so we can be saying this is happening now and it's almost ready to come to market, which I think, well, I'm trying to remember what the deadline was for that. It was this fall, wasn't it? We did that last year. So hopefully within the season of the show, something that's almost fully developed, and we can expect to see it within the year. That's not a hard, fast rule, but it depends on the impact, I guess, that it will have on the community.
So is that you prefer to profile something just before it's released? Is that what you're saying? Or?
That's a tough question because I think it really depends on the story and
It
the
really
scope of the
depends.
project.
And the thing too that you know we haven't talked a lot about, maybe would be a good subject for a future video lunchboxes, is the idea of, if you notice, all these stories have a lot of evergreen components, so they can be re-edited and reposted to your websites at a later date. So this one could be, the app itself could then be edited in later. And so, you know, I mean the challenge for all of us is the cost to produce content is so high that you have to sort of plan out that story arc and look at those repurposing opportunities for down the road, so you can keep recutting and reusing the B-roll and the existing story content that you've already created.
And we are mindful of that when we're writing and producing these, that we do try and keep them as evergreen as possible. You want it new and exciting, and yet, when possible, not date it so it can be re-aired for the longest amount of time. But the reason I wanted to pull this one specifically, obviously we had Sarah at the heart of that, who was very warm and personable. She was really excited to tell us about this project she'd been working on. But I really felt the true heart of that story was the trees. So I tried to write it and make the trees also one of the primary characters of the story, and just give an example of how sometimes the most interesting character in a story doesn't necessarily have to be human. It can just be one of the most powerful components of the story. And clearly the great editing and music, the visuals of that really brought that story to life. And so that is where I turn the spotlight to our wizard producer and editor here, Rick and Rick, who can talk more about that. Predator?
Yes,
Predator.
That's creepy.
Yeah. So we're going to let Rick and Rick, the R&R show, talk a little bit about what we call video fireworks. So this is really talking about some of the simple things you can do to add a professional touch to your video.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to break it up into two parts. You know, as the producer, I get the first half because you know, I'm the one who would go out in the field. I would work with the client producing the stories, and then bring it back, have that piece ready to be edited, have it written, have all the components ready, and then hand it over to Rick. And as a producer, I've always thought of what the producer does is takes that story and then hands it to the editor, and my philosophy is that it's the editor's job then to make it better. You give them what you think is a pretty good piece, and then with their experience, they take it and they make it shine. So you can have something very simple. These stories are actually very simple that you saw, but through editing, they really come to life, and that's where the editor comes in. So you know, I wanted to start just by a quick show of hands. We talked about, and John talked about, a very high percentage of schools and departments at the UW would be doing video in the next year. Just a show of hands, anybody planned, would want to do video, have done video at least in the past? Ah, okay. All right, so at least you're kind of familiar with that. So what I wanted to do is, and part of this is to give you some tools that you can use to make those videos better. We would love to be associated with your video projects, and we can do it turnkey from start to finish. But part of this is to give you some tools so that if you have something that you need to get done, that you want to do, and then bring it to us, it's going to make our job a little bit easier and give you a better product. So I'm going to do a show and tell for you. Basically, I killed a couple of trees here, but I'm going to pass these out. I only printed 25 of these, so we've got some staff people. Maybe let the invited guests grab these first. But what I wanted to talk about is basically basic video and interview production. Every one of these stories had an interview in it, and that's the groundwork for most stories. You have a subject, and as Carolyn said, we let the subject tell the story. And as you saw, these interviews were done just beautifully. They were lit well, they were composed well, and so now I'm going to give you some tips about how to do this yourself so that when you're ready, you can do that. And so my first thing is that if you noticed these videos for the interviews, they were really steady. They weren't shaky. You didn't notice it because most of these were done using a tripod. So tip number one, when possible, always use a tripod. It's very hard to hold the camera still for more than a couple of minutes, you know, when your hands start shaking like that. So basically, use a tripod. And I'm going to talk about doing some very simple interview techniques. And I've got some little tips down on here. Number one, you know, don't use a window as your background. We always say we can't compete with Mother Nature. We can't begin to throw enough light on the subject if the window has all the light coming back through. So the little picture there shows the subject in silhouette. So we want to avoid doing that. The background is important. As you saw, Carolyn had her stand up in the story about peace tags, the introduction, because it had something to do with Veterans Day. If you noticed in the background, she didn't reference it, but you may have noticed there was the reference to the military. There was a flag, on the bookcase, that kind of thing. It helped tell that story. So if you have something in the background that helps illustrate the story, that's a good thing. When you film, you want to avoid filming somebody next to a wall. There isn't enough separation to get depth of field. I'm going to illustrate why in a couple of minutes here. About 6 feet, if you can get it. Some rooms are really small. You may not be able to get 6 feet. If you're filming somebody in their office on campus, if there's a professor you needed to film and you have to go to their office, but just at least get them away from the wall. And I'll tell you why in a minute here. We talked about selecting a nice background, a painting on the wall. It isn't bad to have just a plain background. A black background would work quite well. We have a couple of backgrounds, and here you can use a white wall. One thing to do then, after you get your camera set up, is to look at what's behind there. We always talk about things growing out of people's heads. So you may have a bush or a potted plant behind them, but if you have the branch, it looks like they have the branch growing out of their head. Avoid, you might have a light switch on the wall that you don't really notice until you go in to look and you go, there's a light switch behind them. And all I had to do is move them over about this far and we can cover the light switch. So those are just little things, plugs that we can cover up to try to mask things. So then, here's my show and tell. So this is a little Canon video camera that we just purchased. This camera basically has the features in it that used to be only for cameras that were $40,000 or $50,000. This camera was $3,400, and it takes really, really nice, really nice pictures. So we're going to turn this on for you, and we're going to let you watch it here.
Point it in the other direction.
Oh, I have my lovely subject right here.
Carol Merrill.
No, this is all you, Rick.
This is HD 16:9 1080p with an SD card.
And so it should show up on that television there. And there's our lovely talent. A handsome devil. Very nice.
But that's without makeup.
That's right.
And shaving.
That's right.
Okay, so we have our subject, and just a couple of little tips. If you notice those videos and the interviews, the subject in those videos were not straight on to the camera, square yourself up, which would be basically the mugshot look. Okay, that's the mugshot look. There is a time for that you want somebody looking into the camera, because the camera is a person. That's how we look at it. This camera is a person. So if you want to talk to the person, have them look in there and then tell them there's only one person there, and talk to the person. But normally, we have them rotate their shoulders a little bit, and then we have them look right off camera, right here, to get the shot that we want. The other thing we do is we try to move them. We don't have the camera sitting right in the middle, like that. We try to break the screen up into little quadrants. So we would move the camera just a little bit so that they are looking not quite in the middle.
And what's that called, Rick, that we learned in college?
Which called?
This.
I don't know. I went to college 80 years ago.
We call it speaking room or
nose room.
Nose room, lead room, so that it looks, that's what that's called.
Uh-huh. So,
did you miss that on the test?
I didn't. I wasn't there that day.
He went to San Diego State.
That's true. we were the #1 party school. So we're talking about framing, positioning your subject left or right of center. Have them look just a little bit off the camera, and that's, basically it looks like they're looking at a reporter or somebody asking them interview questions, and having them look off camera. So in this room, because we have this set up to be lit, it looks pretty good. If you're in somebody's office, if you're in a conference room, if you're in the boardroom, if you're in the lunchroom, wherever you're going to be doing this, you don't have a lighting grid with a bunch of lights in it. So I'm going to have you move just a little bit that way, center yourself up a little bit. Okay. So what we've done is we're going to show you. Grim, can you pop down the master? So we're going to actually turn these studio lights off. Okay? So if you were in a room, that's basically kind of what you would get, right? You could turn the lights on, you know, overhead, or you could put a lamp up. So what we can do now, and so we have this little light here that we'll put up. This is also brand new technology. This little light basically for about $300 does what a $3,000 light did just 2 or 3 years ago. That's LED technology. And they're tiny, they don't burn you, and they look really nice. Watch your eyes. Okay, leave that one off for just a sec. So we can turn this light on to compensate for that. And we can also, this light also lets us balance between daylight and room light. Okay? So it gives us the opportunity to, we could use this outdoors as well to fill in, and we can do that. So now here's our little light. So we're going to take a step out. The difference is, so, and what I also wanted to talk about is that you can see him, but we also call this the dreaded floating head. Because it looks like he's just floating into nowhere. But for just one little thing, you know, we can do one more little thing to make it look better. We can turn on a backlight. So Rem hit the backlight. What we're going to do is other side. Now we just separated him from the background so he stands out a little bit. We also moved him away from the background to get that separation. So with just a couple of little things, now you can do this literally with you know, if you don't have anything else, you can use a lamp, you can use natural lighting, so you don't have to go spend an arm and a leg on a gigantic lighting kit. But these lights literally are about $200 to $250 each, and this one actually runs on batteries, so it's running on a battery here right now. So that takes care in a really brief moment, and this is basically part of what in we learned in college called 3-point lighting. I broke it down to 2 because you may not be able to have 3, but you can do it with 2. If we had one more light, which would be better, more is better, right? We would take and we would move this light over a little bit, and we'd put another light on that side, and we'd be able to fill in both sides. And that's the little diagram. You have a key light, a fill light, and then you have a backlight for that 3-point lighting. And that's about as simple as it gets, but this isn't brain surgery either, so it's
well, actually, sometimes it is.
It can be brain surgery. If you're from UW
Medicine.
Medicine.
From the ISIS lab back here, it's probably, it's brain surgery for you, right?
Yes. Perfect. And lastly, for my part, you have a great picture, but if you noticed, you didn't notice anything about the sound, right? It sounded good because the sound was correct. You only notice sound when it isn't there, or if there is something wrong with it. So you don't want to notice it. You just want it. You want it to be there. Most little cameras, this one included, will have an internal microphone. I think they're on here.
On the top of it.
Yeah, have internal microphones. The problem with those, if you have any type of noise in the room, or if you have the camera too far away, it sounds like you're in an elevator shaft, right? You get that hollowness sound. So using a microphone, putting a microphone on your subject is always best. I have a couple of samples. It's show and tell time. So these are, it's best if you also noticed when you probably didn't see a microphone on somebody, because we do our best to hide them, through that smoke and mirrors thing. Microphones are also not expensive. You know, a microphone, we call this a wired lavalier microphone because it does connect by a cable, but it's really tiny. And you would run it up my sweater and just connect it right here. And I can pass this around, but what it does, it connects to this camera with a microphone cable. But for an interview, if you're sitting at a table or something, it would work out well. You guys can pass that around. If you don't have that luxury of having that, and there are also wireless versions that we have as well. They're a little more expensive, but they work well. You can always use a hand microphone and connect your microphone cable, and then they can hold it. It isn't optimum, but that may be all you have to work with. So you have lavalier microphones, you can hide them, or you have hand microphones. And so from there, that kind of gets us to, any questions, I guess, before I turn it over to Rick?
Is all this information about equipment, or at least some general guidelines on your website, or can you send us something about what these lights are called?
Absolutely.
Different types of
Be happy to.
cameras?
Yeah.
That would be really helpful.
Be happy to. I can give you my card, or I can get your card, and I'd be happy to send those to you.
Just make sure your information that was on here when you signed in is correct.
Oh, great.
Information to you.
Question?
Actually, two quick questions. Any advice that we can pass on to our subjects in terms of dress or makeup or that sort of thing? I was told once that subjects should not wear patterned shirts, but I don't know if that's true, and how it connects to the background, or...
It actually does. It isn't as critical as it used to be because the cameras are better. But there are some things that drive cameras crazy. Little thin pinstripes, a white shirt with little thin pinstripes just absolutely drives it. Yeah, basically it looks like the shirt's on fire. It's just like it's going like this. I would also say that the subject should match what you're doing, I think. So if you're dealing with a business professional, obviously business attire is right. When you're talking about colors so much, white drives cameras crazy as well. If we have somebody, if they're wearing a lab coat, if you're in a working environment, if you're in a lab, or if you're in a classroom or something, it isn't as bad because there's a lot of other light around. But as an interview, if Rick were just wearing a white shirt right there, it would really balloon. The white would just kind of glow because the camera's iris off of the white, and so it makes it a little more tough. So all white is bad.
Real quick, translucent powder.
I was going to say that.
It's key for everybody, even if you don't have oily or shiny skin, no matter what. Any light's going to pick up the natural
put some on
moisture
his
in your
forehead,
skin.
that's-
Especially the subject has a receding hairline that can really reflect off the forehead. It's true, and it can be very distracting.
Put some on his
Powder!
Nobody
Makeup.
wants to look shiny, oily, sweaty. It makes you look sweaty, and then you can make the subject look nervous even if they're completely comfortable. So it's very important to just buy a couple of these and have translucent, so there's no tint to it. It'll match any skin color, and powder them before you do that. And then look through the viewfinder on the camera before you start shooting. See, is it still looking shiny? You may need to retouch every 5 minutes or so.
There are some of us who aren't familiar with purchasing makeup. Is that
Any
just being
Bartels,
like-
the lady behind the counter will get you. Yes.
Second
Yes.
question. So smartphones are getting better and better in terms of taking photographs and taking video, and I've seen all kinds of widgets
You've seen it.
you can attach to a smartphone, a little tiny boom mic, a little tiny lens to elaborate what it's already built in. In your professional opinion, are those getting to the point that they can be used in the middle of a camera?
I think they can be used depending on what your purpose is. If your point is to post it to YouTube, or social media or something like that, then they work quite well. If your goal is to put it on television, or like our UWTV.org for that kind of thing, they take really nice images, and they tell you that they take 1920 by 1080 HD, which they do. Technically, they do. The problem is that the lens on those is like this. The lens on that camera is like this, and the lens on a professional video camera is like this. They're just better, Part of
I'm asking because I work sometimes with instructors who want their students to create videos, and so, the equipment, their access to equipment is sort of unpredictable, but more and more students definitely have smartphones. And so a lot of these guidelines, they can apply.
In fact, that's what I was going to say. The same guidelines apply if you were going to shoot an interview with your iPhone. And iPhones have really good lenses, they take good video, but if you're holding your iPhone like this, it doesn't really work well.
Part of the problem too is, think about YouTube, and when YouTube first started to gain popularity, everybody was watching videos in frames like about that big on their computer screens. And now we're watching YouTube on 42-inch television sets. All these people that are cutting the cord from cable are watching YouTube like blown up, or even on an iPad like this gentleman in the front row, and they're doing full screen. It's very challenging, and I mean it sounds really cool to capture. We did it with an iPhone. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And remember, it's representing. As well, you all know, it's representing your unit, it's representing your school, and it's going out around the world. So be careful with that. However, integrating content you've captured with an iPhone can be extremely effective, because to the viewer, they're feeling like they're getting some insider peek into something that they would otherwise not see. So mixing produced content, highly produced content, with not so produced content can be very effective as a communications tool.
And I would say too, by all means, if you want to cover an event or something and you don't have the professional grade equipment, it's really helpful if you can say, yeah, we did capture some great file video of that, and even if it's on an iPhone, and you can also shoot it a little more, more guerrilla marketing type video. You can make it fun and edgy, and just having video of a key event or speaker or something happening is far better than trying to go back and have someone just describe it later on. So it can be
Shoot
really
more, not less.
Yes, exactly. By all means, use it.
And a good segue to the second part. Like I said, the editor's job is to make it better. And Ron said I'd won some awards over the years. I was thinking, every award I've won, I think Rick had a hand in editing them. And as Rick will always tell me, the favorite line is, "I'm no editor. He's the editor." Your turn.
Thanks, Rick. Yes, I am the editor. I put all these things together, and it's interesting. We were talking about that iPhone thing, and in a lot of these stories that I put together, we do go out and shoot the interview. We do light it. We have a good photographer that takes great pictures in HD. All those components make a powerful video. You have to do the little pieces right to really put it all together. What we do here is a real collaborative process with the people that produce, write, shoot, and edit. And we have experienced professional people here that have done this for a lot of years. That's why this stuff looks so good. This is network quality television that we do here. It's not any different than what would be on CBS or ABC or NBC. These are the same quality stories. We use the same kind of equipment. It's in HD. It looks great. That being said, I use, with a lot of the stories I get here, we'll go out and do what our part is, but we do need that other video, those other photos that really tell your story when it was happening, when you were there. And maybe you didn't do a good job of shooting it, but generally I can take whatever you got and make it into something that does look presentable, professional, and good, that gives your video, your story, the weight that it really needs and wants. And when you combine all this stuff, it really turns into something special. I have done my wife's mother has a hospital in the Philippines, ironically, who just had experienced that typhoon. But a couple of years ago, I did a whole 5-6 minute video on that thing with just my iPhone. And it's beautiful. It looks great. And it's because of the way I shot it, but mostly because of the way I edited it. And you can do anything with any media that you have. Don't be afraid to say, oh, I have this. It's not very good. I'll find a part of it that is good enough, and it'll work within your story and stuff. And that kind of leads me to, like, whatever you guys shoot, if you just did it all yourself, you could come to us and you could say, we want to make this a show. We want to put this on our thing. We could use this open montage. We can create an open for you that we would put at the front of the, go ahead and play that we can put in the front of your video that would say that, oh, this is from the University of Washington, and this is from the College of Engineering, and this is a lecture that we did. This is just an example of one school. We could do something for UW Medicine. We put your logo in there, and then we go to your piece. Same with like the Foster School of Business. We do their logo with just this generic background. We also can do more elaborate graphical treatment of your open. This is what we did for the iSchool, for their school. We did an hour-long documentary on the iSchool, and this is a graphic we created. This is for Climate of Change, which we did with the sustainability people here on campus. We did 4 half-hour shows with them. They're all really good, high-quality graphics that we can either do in-house, or sometimes we go out of house and have a graphic artist do that kind of stuff.
And those first few opens too those are available. Those have been created by UW Central Marketing for anyone to use. So there's no, I mean, they're open to any. They're free to be used by anybody.
Right. And speaking of free, or what we bring to the party here, is that we have a stock, what do I want to say? A library full of stock video aerials of the University of Washington. This is all in HD, everything on campus. Any kind of experienced students studying, computers, all this stuff. We have all this, so we can make whatever your story, make it as big as the university is. I mean, this university is like a small city, and we're this channel for this city that we have here, which is full of really interesting people doing really interesting things. There's lots of great stories here. It's actually a gold mine for what we do here, and it's easy to do. I like to play this sizzle reel we just created here. It's just kind of a 3-minute montage of kind of the stuff we do, and you'll see the shows we do, the people we interview, kind of what we've already seen, but this is just a more encompassing, fast-paced. This is kind of how I edit things to make them interesting. So let's kind of take a look at this sizzle reel.
This is all stock footage, stuff that we have.
This is stuff, yeah, this is just stuff we've done the last year or so.
At UW Video, we speak Husky.
Welcome to the University of Washington.
From the brand new Bezos Center for Innovation, I'm Hanson Hossein. Join us for the next 4 Ps.
I brought some Starbucks coffee.
You haven't had enough coffee until you can thread a moving sewing machine.
And when Huskies aren't curing diseases, they're solving the world's other problems. The University of Washington research that comes out of this project is going to be just absolutely world leading.
inside the new and improved Husky Stadium.
In the Burke Museum.
UW Student Farm.
It's people, information, and technology.
Your story, your project, your budget.
Technology is now going to allow us to reach out in ways that haven't been possible.
UW Video is here, on campus, to make it happen.
Now that's cool.
See, we get everybody to participate in these things. The president, everyone. So that's just an example of how we make things big, make them look like it's more than it really is in a lot of times. But it is the way to tell the story. One of the things I just love doing these things. I went to school here 35 years ago. I was in this studio as a student.
Years ago.
And to come all the way full circle and still be here telling these stories, wearing my Husky stuff, it's fun. I really enjoy working here and doing this stuff. One of the things that one of my favorite stories that I've done here was about a year ago, UW Film Archive. They have all these films that have been taken over the last 50, 60 years at the University of Washington. And they're all just there, and this is what the Film Archive does. This is their job and stuff. But they wanted us to document, tell their story of what they do. And I think this is just a real creative, that's interesting to everybody, but it really documents what everybody does. And I think that's the story that everybody here wants to be able to tell, put on their website. That's what we do too. This goes on TV, but this also goes on your website. It's always there. You Google it and it's there. And YouTube, and it's all about access, and we really build things that are made to be accessible to everyone. This is the story on the Film Archive, and it's just a fun story, and I think it's just a great example of what we can do for anybody here.
Film has been capturing our imagination and recording our collective culture for over a century now. While it's the Hollywood films that are often seen as the biggest contributors to the art form, one UW department sees value in less renowned works.
So when a collection comes in a shoebox, this is where we unpack the shoebox and see what's in it.
Welcome to the University of Washington Library's Special Collections Department, where Hannah Palin is preserving our past frame by frame.
Films that were shot on campus, by campus, for campus over the years. And then it's also films that were donated over the course of the years.
We have a collection of maybe about 10,000 or more films that relate to a broad range of topics, and those films come in various ways. They come in as one film from somebody's home movies. They might come as part of a collection of papers.
There are so many different types and styles of films housed in the collection that it can be hard to keep track. But certain films do stand out.
Sometimes there are surprises that you would not believe in collections. Like trout research, and there's people spray painting fish green, and there's just all kinds of really odd experiments in there.
My all-time favorite piece of footage is about 30 seconds of a penguin on a treadmill. I love that piece of footage.
And we also have someone in a gorilla suit in the library in Odegaard in the probably early 80s. And it's a film about how not to behave in a library. And that one just turned up the other day.
We have film footage of a one-armed man jumping out of the Smith Tower. It's really wonderful to see some of the films that, the world has changed. That's kind of fun to see. And sometimes it's just like, wow.
So right now, We're assessing some severely damaged film.
We caught up with Hannah and one of her helpful student workers, Jonathan, while doing some of the dirty work of film preservation.
That old wet mold?
I don't know. No, maybe it was some tape too.
Tape? Would it have that kind of pattern though?
I don't know.
Looks like football.
So this is my favorite box of film that we found at the stadium. I don't know what to do with this. It's just such a disaster.
Hannah has only begun to scratch the surface of this collection, and it will likely be years before it is properly archived and available to the public. In the meantime, tons of other cinematic gems are available and easily searchable on the Special Collections website.
These are Betacam SP, Betacam.
Hannah and Nicolette are not just content to preserve the films housed within Special Collections. They'd like to be a regional resource for film preservation.
Because otherwise, there's film sitting in institutions, small historical societies, or in other universities or anywhere. There's film all over the place, but it sits there because nobody knows what to do or how to take care of it.
Because it's important for you to take care of it too, not just those of us in the profession. It's, you know, it's something that everybody has, and that you want to take care of your family photographs and films as much as, you know, as much as I want to take care of fish being spray painted green. It's Kodachrome, which is beautiful.
So that's a great example of a group of people that do this job. It's a great example of documenting what they do, of using all these things that they have, but putting it all together to tell a story, make it interesting, and it drives them ultimately for people to say like, wow, I want to see more stuff. They'll go to their website, they'll look up stuff, and you just have that relationship with people. I think that video storytelling is the way to do it. You get to people emotionally, and like one of my goals is, if it's a really good story, a sad story or something, I want to make somebody cry, I want to make somebody smile, I want to make somebody laugh, and that's what we can do. That's what we bring to the table here with our experience and stuff. So why would you try to do it yourself when we could do it for you? That's what I would ask, you know. Go ahead.
So I have two questions. One is about the beginning of the process. And the other is, who the heck is calling me now?
It's lunch hour.
And the other one is about the end of the process. So you mentioned you were filming this, and I've done filming at various events, and I've always been one to be very careful about releases, about everybody knowing they're going to be filmed. So,
right. We do.
You know, like if I'm at an event, I'm filming a talk, and I capture the Q&A or whatever.
Right.
But
well, when we do something for you, whether it's a story for 360 that we may approach you or you would approach us, or an event, a lecture like we did last night for Heather in the engineering department, one of the jobs of our producers, like I did last night, is we get releases. We have a standard release form we have you sign. If it's a large room, we'll put up a sign: by entering this room, you agree to be photographed. Basic stuff that we do in our sleep. And that's all taken care of for you.
Okay, the second one is about the end, hosting. Do you have
the website?
Preferred way to mount our finished products? Or
YouTube.
That's the best one?
It's the most universal way, but we also have our UWTV website that we post things.
Which uses YouTube.
Right, which uses YouTube. But there's also...
I mean, this is my point of view. I mean, YouTube is becoming the ubiquitous place, you know, aggregated place for content. I think, you know, the risk there is obviously, you know, you've got a lecture on, you know, genome science next to a skateboarding cat, right? And that's a bit of a challenge. But if you haven't done so already, I know a lot of people in this room probably have done, open up your own channel. Open up your own channel on YouTube. Post your content there, but be careful to manage it. You know, that's really a challenge too. One of the things, like what Rick's talking about, is that you know, we can host that content on our website. It's hosted through YouTube, so you get sort of triple exposure. You know, by at UWTV.org, which there's no charge to host your content. and then you get the exposure on YouTube. But you know, there's been others out there, the Vimeo and all that stuff. My personal opinion, I wouldn't bother.
We have, what we offer is several forms of distribution of content. So we have online through YouTube. We have Channel 27 on Comcast Cable. We can do short form. We can do what we call interstitials, which is the break between programs. Stories that go in there. We have a variety of lengths, 30 to 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. The social media sites that we can help you get distributed on, and that's the end process. Is we're here to help you distribute your content so that you get the most eyes on it. We can host it to your website if you'd like, or use ours. So
I have an overarching 2 questions that aren't about production and tips and that kind of thing. But can you talk a little bit about what UWTV used to be and all massive changes that you all have gone through with changes in staffing and the reorg that's happened, and what UW Video is now working to become, and so where you were before and where you're hoping to go now and why those changes occurred. And then also talk about the size of your audience as opposed to others in our market with Como, KCPQ, Cairo King. A little bit about that.
We'll let John talk about most of that. That's the perfect segue into what is our next discussion topic, which is perfect. You must have read our outline. And as soon as John will answer the question, then we'll segue into our part.
Well, yeah, we really did invite everybody here to learn some tips and tricks, but we're always happy to talk about ourselves. So, which is a great interviewing technique, by the way, for getting people in your organization on video. Just ask them to talk about themselves, and I'm sure most people will be happy to oblige. UWTV has been around for a very long time, and we've grown the audience significantly. But the overhead and infrastructure to maintain a full-scale broadcast operation, satellite distribution, became really too cumbersome for us. Combine that with new forms of distribution, like mobile devices, the ubiquity of YouTube, and the audience's growth that we're seeing there. We see that there's probably a delta at some point down the road where cable distribution, as we know it today, is really going to become not as important, and that distribution via online is going to become more important. So what we did was we made a difficult decision to downsize the organization and start to invest more of our resources in creation of content, because we had so much success in syndicating a lot of our programs. It allowed us a much broader distribution network through Como, through Northwest Cable News, through the Pac-12 networks to distribute our sort of high-end content, but then focus more of our resources on telling shorter stories, doing shorter videos, producing content for our campus partners that go on YouTube, that go on your website, that go into your newsletters, that go into your email communications. So that's really the direction we're going forward with, is lower cost production. You heard Rick talk about, oh, the camera went away, but the cost of infrastructure has changed dramatically too, and so our ability to produce very high quality content at lower cost is an important aspect of our strategy going forward. That camera back there, $3,000, used to be a $65,000 piece of equipment. And so today we can do it much more cost effectively, and we think we can provide a great service to campus in helping you tell your stories. But it's important, because what Carolyn and Rick and the two Ricks bring to the table is it doesn't matter what the camera is, it doesn't matter the lighting, it doesn't matter if you have a studio, it doesn't matter if you have a cable television network. It's people like that, storytellers, that make your stories come to life, that create that engagement, that make those videos go viral, that make all of your stakeholders, your targeted audiences, start talking about you. And that's what we all want as communicators, right? Because we want people talk, well, in a good way. We want people talking about us. So that's our new, does that answer your question? Kind of our new direction?
I guess so. So is there like a philosophical change with that about the kinds of stories you're going to pursue, or?
Your stories. The stories from across our campus, yeah. So no philosophical change in the way we tell stories, but very much driven by the needs of campus. Yeah, and more focused on the online platform and moving resources away from the television platform. But the television is still there. Some point in the future, we don't know exactly where, but probably anybody's guess in here, 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road, we're going to be watching television a lot differently than we are today. So at least we think so.
Thank you, John. So to get near the end, UW Video, the difference is before we produced most content long form for distribution on the linear channel. Today, we're creating a variety of short form, long form programming for distribution on a variety of distribution methods, points. The difference, we're more than just storytelling. So what we do a great deal of for UW Medicine, most of the schools, we record lectures, events up in Kane 130, in Meany Hall. We're in the hub on Monday, hopefully. We did a video for the School of Nursing for Reba, the dean who passed away a couple weeks ago. And those have been done here for a while, and they were very expensive to do, took a long time to do, and we have changed our methodology to provide for all 3 campuses to do those kinds of events cheaper, better, and faster. Cheaper by about 70%. Faster, which used to be a turnaround of a month, is now 2 days. Cheaper without any sacrifice in quality. We still have and use the $65,000 cameras. We have 3 Sony, whatever they're called. What are they?
XD cam.
What?
XD cam.
XD cams that work on large discs. We also have purchased, as Rick demonstrated, these new HD cameras that are a lot more flexible. We also have what's called GoPros. If you watch 60 Minutes the other night, they did a whole segment on GoPros, which are little portable DVD cameras. You hook them to helmets and
Here's just an example of a lecture that we cover with 3 cameras. We switch it. It's all in HD. It just makes it look like a real show, a real television show, and I think it makes a difference when people are watching and stuff. And I think that when we bring our crews in, this is kind of what you get, where you get someone that just looks professional. And you've seen some of our older stuff where it's maybe not as good, but we can incorporate people's PowerPoints, their lecture, and you'll just see and hear that you get nice wide shots, get nice audience shots, and it just makes the event big, and it lives forever. And I think people notice it makes it watchable.
So these are done in real time, which may not, we do what we switch it at the event. So we bring a portable switcher which takes all 3 cameras and we switch it like you would in a studio. We connect to a director is there, a producer is there. We did these every Wednesday for a month.
This was 2012, and we just finished the 2013 series this past Wednesday night.
So UW Video lit the background. The blue you see on the background is by design. That's our lighting. The lighting on Margaret is our design. We even helped light the studio audience. This was done on a Wednesday and aired on a Friday. That's how quick it was turned around, because we do it right there. We have very little post-production in order to get it out. So, and we are now even more efficient at doing these than we were in the past. It would be our hope to get, because what we want to do at UW Video is tell your story out to as many people as we can and promote your schools. We would be pleased if we could do everything up in Kane 130, 120, 210, 220, to get that broadcast out either through the web or through our channel. And this is where we believe we can make a significant impact in promoting your schools. Are there any questions?
That type of lecture, you could only do open Kane, like with that kind of camera thing. You couldn't bring it down to South Campus to
Sure.
We could do it.
Do them all the time.
We could do it in your basement.
Okay.
Yeah, we take the same equipment every spring into Hogness
Okay.
and do what ends up being 12 mini-med sessions over 6 weeks.
For UW Medicine, we're in operating rooms, we're in lecture halls, we are in Hub 3 something on Monday, we do classrooms. And we don't do it, so this is an event, so the history department, Lynn in the history department wants it to look like a program. So it's multiple camera, very effective lighting, graphics, all done quickly and inexpensively. We also do for MOOCs and other professors that just want their classrooms recorded to put online without, so it still looks like a classroom. We can do that very inexpensively by utilizing Austin, who's back there on camera, was also the talent in the 3-minute video. We bring that camera or something similar to that and can set up in 10 minutes and record in 1920 1080p HD the lecture. And we then bring it back into post-production, put our opens, a bed of music, create it to whatever length you would like, and can either air that or give that to you for distribution on the web or for the Nutrition 300. What school is that? Nursing. We can give it back to you because they want it for the MOOCs program. So, and we can do that very inexpensively, in a few $100 range. Yes?
Yeah, I'm actually wondering how much these things that you've shown us cost. So for example, how much was the history program, how much is filming a class, things like that, so I can get a sense of what the cost would be.
This is a 3-camera production, which we normally only use 3 cameras to make it an event, or a single camera because you're just recording it for posterity. This was $2,100 a night, approximately. We can take that to, and that was with Margaret wanted hair and makeup. We had a professional hair and makeup person come in. We had, this was one of the first ones we did. So there was hair and makeup and there's food and, so that added to the cost. But in the $1,600 to $2,200 range is where we can do that quality of work. We can also record your event in HD with professional RF microphones starting at $300, $400, $500 in that range. Any other questions? Yes.
I have another question about MOOCs that you mentioned. So with online ed exploding and MOOCs exploding and every department across campus wanting to participate in that, and online degree completion starting to happen now and going to grow, is there any institutional overarching attempt to make them all look and sound the same with lower thirds and opens so that it's branded and looks like UW, or is it?
No, but they should. They should. Have you seen what our competition is doing out there?
Yes.
I mean, it's really sad.
So, how can we make that happen?
I would love to. I mean, we would love to participate in that. I mean, as I started to get into that a little bit, looking at what USC is doing, what University of Michigan is doing.
People are blowing us out of the water.
Yeah, and it's really becoming a marketplace, right? Yes. I mean, and so the consumer is going in there, and they're making value judgments about the quality of the courses based on the quality of the course outline video, right?
And we like to throw around that we're a leader in this, and
it doesn't look like it.
Doesn't look like we are.
Well, that's why we offer, because John and I went to the website. I went to Ohio State, and we, in our DNA, we hate anything Michigan. They're our arch rival. So it was really painful to see it. But you look at the University of Washington, a Division I school, frankly, and here's the professor from one of the schools holding an iPhone and lecturing like this. You go to University of Michigan, and it's in a green screen with special effects and a beautiful open and all of that. And then there was some where, but we lend ourselves, because we're all Emmy Award-winning professionals. There was one, I kidded John about it here, they went outside, got an HD camera, probably had a student do it, put it not on a tripod, so it's kind of, we call it onboard ship, because it's like this, because it's difficult to hold. And here's the professor doing their thing, and behind it is people walking. You know, because they just went somewhere. So here's people walking, and here's somebody walking, you know, pulling out a, you know, thing stands behind them, pulling out something out of their nose. It detracts from the message. In producing, if you wanted to talk to Becky or any of our producers, Para, good producing is detail. We're exceptionally detailed people. We see detail in things. When we take Carolyn out to shoot her for a 360, that attention to detail, it'll drive them crazy, but I saw a crack in the sidewalk and made her move, right? Because the crack detracted from her, and she's the message. And any producer here...
It was a really big, long crack.
It was in Mary Gates Hall. It's a crack all the way through the atrium. But that's what we do. And so in MOOCs, it's from a iPhone with bad audio, wind noise, poor lighting, and a professor is trying to sell the school. That iPhone look works when you have a squirrel on a skateboard. You know, that's entertaining. But you wouldn't want your dean or your professor or your mother-in-law to look like that, because you're trying to represent your school or whatever. And that's what we bring to the table at a fraction of the cost that it was 6 months ago, and done by these professionals. Yes?
I have a question about storytelling videos and scripting. How do we work with you on scripting? In some cases, we would have an almost finished script, but in some cases, we would need a lot of help with scripting. How does that work with you?
It works any way you wish it to work. So we have some clients who prefer to write it themselves. We have some clients that have written an outline and need it polished. Some that have written a full script and need it polished. And the vast majority who come to us with, I don't know how to write a script. We're all professionals, and Carolyn is one of the best I've ever seen at it. Rick's not bad either. Becky and Cara, good. We're all good. But it's a real art, because in television, less is more. So you're trying to make a point, and usually, you know, amateurs will try to make 15 points in 30 seconds. And we know we got to whittle that, and it's really about a minute and a half, and we have to whittle that down. We work with you, or we'll handle it, and we have what we call a work-back schedule. So like for the Reba video that one of our producers did, we met with the School of Nursing. They gave us their vision, because it's your vision. We don't have your vision. Our job is to take your vision and bring it to life. So we met with them. They told us what they want in the script. We wrote it. We sent them an outline. They approved it. Then we sent them the script. They tweak it. We misspelled Reba, you know, things like that. Then that gets finalized, and we create the video.
Are you talking about a shooting script?
The shooting script, or any kind of script. So we work collaboratively with you to make sure that your vision gets put on paper and then put on the screen.
Yeah, and even like when I'm editing things, personally, I love it when the actual client that's going to make the decisions about what's in the video and what they like or not like, I like to have them come into my edit suite, which is right here on campus, and watch it and talk about it and say, like, we don't like this, we like this. And it's a fast way of solving problems and getting out the message that everyone wants. And I think we all want to just be able to work with everyone on campus to do that.
Do you have voiceover talent, or do you buy clips? Can we audition?
The sky is the limit, you know. We have connections to all the top-end professionals here in Seattle. A lot of the stuff we hear here are just from our staff here, because in one way or another, we've all kind of done television stuff over the last 30 years, so.
If you wanted, we could get James Earl Jones to do your voiceover. If you
That's
had
right.
25,000.
Yeah, might shoot the budget, but.
Yeah, he's cheaper though.
We do, the one voice you heard on the spot was Becky. And Rick was a professional voiceover talent years ago. And that'll come into when you're doing a story, that comes into the budget. Do you have a particular voice in mind, a type of voice? We get actors who can play James Earl Jones a lot cheaper than hiring James Earl Jones.
I think just to kind of summarize the scripting, you can write it, we can write it for you, we can work with you to write that. Something to think about is that, and I always use this analogy that if a picture is worth 1,000 words, so if you take that picture and you give it motion and you give it emotion and sound along with it, now what's that worth on top of that? And if you start at the beginning, if you write an outline, or if you write a script, basically what you have is, you have a document or what could be a book or a newspaper article. If you record that with the voice, now you have something for radio. If you add images to that, now that's what you have for television. So our job is to take, working with you, that document and pick the areas within there to tell that story. And we use this thing all the time, call it see it, say it. If you say it, we need to see it. And so that's one thing we work with you to do. That, if you talk about a process or procedure, something that you've done or you want to do in a class or within your department, now we have to say, okay, how do we illustrate that? That's how we work with you to get that message across.
We're out of time, so are there any other questions? I'll turn it back over to John.
Well, thank you guys all for making time on your lunch hour. I really appreciate seeing everybody here, and please do take a moment to fill out our quick survey. Tell us what the next topic is you'd like us to cover, what you'd like to see more of, maybe in our next video lunchbox, which will be in January. So I hope to see all of you back, and tell your friends. We love talking about this stuff. You can tell this panel really enjoyed it, and we'll have maybe some of the same and some new faces for you in January. Thank you all for coming. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.